Dr. Marcus Chen had seen many strange things during his 15 years as a xenobiologist, but the three small creatures huddled in the abandoned research station on Kepler 442b were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They looked exactly like the feral cats that once roamed Earth's cities before the Great Migration, complete with matted fur, sharp claws, and those piercing yellow eyes that seemed far too intelligent for simple animals. "Another failed colony," muttered his assistant, Dr. Sarah Williams, as she scanned the empty corridors with her tablet. "Third one this month. The Confederation really needs to do better background checks on these frontier worlds." Marcus knelt beside the three creatures, who had taken shelter beneath a collapsed support beam. The largest one, a sleek black female with silver markings along her spine, watched him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Her two companions, smaller and more timid, pressed close to her flanks as if seeking protection. "Strange," Marcus whispered, pulling out his portable scanner. "The atmospheric readings show this planet should be toxic to Earth-based life forms. How are they surviving here?" The readings on his device made no sense. The cats showed elevated brain activity patterns, almost as if they were processing complex thoughts. Their cellular structure was wrong, too organized, too perfect. It was as if someone had taken the basic template of a feline and improved upon it in ways that shouldn't be possible with natural evolution. Sarah joined him, her boots crunching on the debris scattered across the station floor. "Maybe there's some kind of experiment. This station belonged to the Meridian Research Collective before they went dark 6 months ago. Could be genetic modifications gone wrong." "Or gone right," Marcus replied, watching as the black cat tilted her head, almost as if she understood their conversation. "Look at their behavior patterns. They're not acting like frightened animals. They're studying us." The truth was more complex than either human could imagine. The creatures before them were indeed studying the newcomers, but not as primitive animals examining potential threats. Commander Zarathul of the Dragon Empire's 7th Fleet was conducting a tactical assessment of these strange bipedal beings who had stumbled into her temporary hiding place. 3 months ago, her flagship had been ambushed by Confederation forces while conducting a reconnaissance mission in this sector. The attack had been devastating, her crew scattered, her ship destroyed, and her own body severely damaged in the explosion. Using the last of her shape-shifting abilities, she had managed to assume this primitive form and escape to the planet's surface with her two most loyal officers, Captain Vexitar and Lieutenant Shah-Nai. The transformation had saved their lives, but at a cost. Maintaining these alien shapes drained their energy reserves, and without access to their ship's quantum cores, they were essentially trapped. Worse, each passing day in these forms made it harder to access their true nature. The Dragon Empire's bioenhancement technology was sophisticated, but it wasn't designed for long-term metamorphosis into such radically different species. Zara watched as the male human, the one called Marcus, according to their spoken language, which her translation implants were still decoding, reached slowly toward her. His movements were careful, non-threatening, which surprised her. Most species in this galaxy showed either immediate fear or aggressive dominance when encountering unknown life forms. These humans displayed curiosity instead, a trait that marked them as either very brave or very foolish. "Easy there, little one," Marcus said softly, extending his hand palm up. "We're not going to hurt you." The concept of being called Little One by a creature barely half her true height would have been laughable under normal circumstances. Zarathul stood 7 feet tall in her natural form, with scales that could deflect plasma fire and claws capable of tearing through starship hull plating. But trapped in this diminished state, she found herself oddly touched by the genuine concern in the human's voice. She allowed him to stroke her head, noting how his touch was gentle despite his obvious excitement at discovering them. Through her enhanced senses, she could detect his elevated heart rate, the chemical signatures of adrenaline and dopamine in his system. He was genuinely fascinated by what he believed were simple animals. "They're malnourished," Sarah observed, running her own scanner over the group. "Whatever they've been eating here, it's not providing proper nutrition. We should take them back to the ship." "The quarantine protocols," Marcus began, "can be adjusted for emergency wildlife rescue," Sarah interrupted. "Besides, look at them. They're clearly intelligent enough to seek shelter and work together for survival. That level of cooperation suggests advanced cognitive development. The xenobiology department would have our heads if we left them here to die." Zara exchanged glances with her officers. Vexitar's golden eyes held a question. Should they reveal themselves now and demand assistance as representatives of the Dragon Empire? The humans seemed reasonable enough, and their technology, while primitive by dragon standards, was clearly capable of space travel. But Shanae's subtle headshake reminded her of their precarious situation. They had no way of knowing if these humans were allied with the Confederation forces that had attacked them. For all they knew, this could be a trap, designed to capture high-ranking Dragon Empire officers for interrogation and execution. "We'll take them," Marcus decided, reaching for a portable carrier from his equipment pack. "Document everything. If these are the last survivors of whatever happened to this colony, they might be the key to understanding what went wrong here." As the humans prepared to transport them, Zara made a calculated decision. She would allow this capture, use it as an opportunity to study these beings more closely. If they proved trustworthy, perhaps she could find a way to communicate her true nature and request assistance. If they proved hostile, well, even in this weakened state, she retained enough of her abilities to ensure her officers' safety. The carrier was larger than expected, with soft bedding and adequate ventilation. As Marcus gently lifted her, Zara was surprised by the care he took to avoid causing discomfort. Most species she had encountered treated captured specimens as objects to be studied rather than living beings deserving of basic consideration. "There we go," Marcus murmured as he settled her into the carrier. "Don't worry, we'll get you somewhere safe." Safe. The word carried multiple meanings in Dragon Empire common tongue, but the human's tone suggested he meant it in the most basic sense: protection from harm, provision of basic needs, freedom from fear. It was not what she had expected from a species that the Empire's intelligence reports had dismissed as technologically primitive, but potentially aggressive. The journey to their ship took 20 minutes across the rugged terrain of Kepler 442b. Through the carrier's mesh windows, Zara observed the humans' equipment and procedures. Their technology was indeed less advanced than Empire standard, but it was well designed and practical. More importantly, their teamwork showed a level of coordination and mutual respect that suggested a sophisticated social structure. Their vessel, when they reached it, confirmed her growing reassessment of human capabilities. The ship was smaller than a Dragon Empire scout craft, but its design showed remarkable efficiency. Every system appeared to be optimized for its purpose, with redundancies built in for safety rather than the overwhelming firepower that characterized most species' space vessels. "Quarantine bay first," Sarah instructed as they boarded. "Full medical workup, then we can set up a proper habitat in the biology lab." The medical examination was thorough, but conducted with unexpected gentleness. The humans seemed genuinely concerned about causing distress to their guests, constantly monitoring their subjects' stress levels and adjusting procedures accordingly. When Vexitar showed signs of anxiety during the blood draw, Marcus immediately stopped the procedure and spent several minutes calming him before trying a different, less invasive approach. "Fascinating," Marcus muttered as the test results appeared on his screen. "Their genetic structure is unlike anything in the database. It's almost as if someone took standard feline DNA and optimized it for enhanced intelligence and physical capability." Bioweapon? Sarah suggested, though her tone indicated she didn't really believe it. No. Too subtle for that. This looks more like, enhancement. As if someone was trying to create the perfect version of this species rather than weaponize it. Zara listened to their speculation with growing amusement. They were closer to the truth than they realized, though they had the direction reversed. Dragon Empire technology didn't enhance primitive species. It allowed advanced beings to assume primitive forms when necessary. The habitat they prepared was surprisingly comfortable. The humans had researched Earth feline behavior patterns and created an environment that provided both security and stimulation. There were places to climb, surfaces to scratch, and even a water feature that created soothing sounds. It was clear they saw their guests as living beings rather than mere specimens. That evening, as the ship entered hyperspace for the journey back to the nearest Confederation research station, Zara made her decision. These humans had shown her something unexpected, a combination of intellectual curiosity and genuine compassion that was rare among the galactic powers. Perhaps it was time to test their reaction to the truth. She waited until the ship's night cycle, when most of the crew would be asleep. Using techniques learned in her youth, she began the delicate process of partially revealing her true form. Not the full transformation. That would be too shocking and potentially seen as threatening, but enough to demonstrate that they were dealing with something far more complex than they had assumed. The change began slowly, her feline features subtly shifting to reveal hints of the draconic heritage that lay beneath. Her eyes became more luminous, their color shifting from yellow to the deep amber gold of her natural form. Scales began to emerge along her spine, initially so fine they might have been mistaken for unusual fur patterns. When Marcus arrived for his routine evening check, he found her sitting in a pool of soft light, her transformation approximately halfway complete. She watched his face carefully, ready to shift back to full feline form if he showed signs of fear or aggression. Instead, his expression showed wonder, excitement, and something that looked remarkably like joy. "Hello," he said quietly, his voice steady despite what must have been considerable shock. "I was wondering when you would decide to trust us." The fact that he addressed her directly, as an intelligent being rather than an animal, told Zara everything she needed to know about Marcus Chen's character. Perhaps these humans were more remarkable than even the Dragon Empire had realized. Marcus's calm acceptance of her partial transformation surprised Zarathul more than any weapon could have. She completed the shift slowly, allowing her true features to emerge while maintaining enough of the feline characteristics to appear non-threatening. When the change was complete, she stood before him as something between her two forms, clearly intelligent, obviously not entirely feline, but not yet revealing the full majesty and power of her Dragon Empire heritage. "My name is Zarathul," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that human ears weren't designed to process, but somehow still managed to understand. "I am not what you believed me to be." Marcus moved carefully to a chair across from her habitat, maintaining respectful distance while showing no signs of fear. "I suspected as much. Your behavior patterns, the genetic anomalies, the way you seem to understand everything we were saying. You're from somewhere else, aren't you? Not this planet. Not this solar system," Zara confirmed, gesturing for Vextar and Shania to reveal themselves as well. Her officers emerged from the shadows where they had been waiting, their own transformations less complete, but clearly showing their non-terrestrial nature. "We are refugees, you might say. Our vessel was destroyed, and we sought shelter in forms that would allow us to survive on that world." The transformation of her companions brought in sharp intake of breath from Marcus, but still no fear. Instead, he leaned forward with the same intense curiosity he had shown when studying their blood samples. "The research station. Were you responsible for what happened to the colonists?" "No," Zara replied firmly. "We arrived after the colony had already failed. The atmospheric processors had malfunctioned, creating toxic conditions that the human settlers couldn't survive. We found only empty buildings and the remains of a failed terraforming effort." "But you could survive there?" "Our technology allows us to adapt to hostile environments more easily than your species. What was poison to humans was merely uncomfortable for us." Marcus nodded slowly, processing this information. "You said your vessel was destroyed. By whom?" This was the crucial moment. Zara studied the human's face carefully before answering. "By forces of the Terran Confederation. We were conducting routine reconnaissance when we were attacked without warning or provocation." The reaction was immediate, but not what Zara had expected. Instead of defensive anger or accusations of invasion, Marcus's expression darkened with something that looked like disgust. "The Hawkins Doctrine," he muttered. "I should have known." "You are familiar with this policy?" "Unfortunately, yes. Admiral Hawkins has been pushing for preemptive strikes against any non-human vessels found in what he considers human space. It's a barbaric policy that's made enemies of half the galactic community." Marcus ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "Most of us in the science community oppose it strongly, but the military has been given broad authority in frontier sectors." Zara exchanged glances with her officers. This human's disgust with his own military's actions was genuine. She could detect no deception in his voice or body language. More importantly, his reaction suggested that not all humans supported the aggressive policies that had made the Dragon Empire view them as potential threats. "Your reconnaissance mission," Marcus continued carefully. "What were you looking for?" "New species to establish contact with," Zara replied, deciding that honesty was the best approach with this remarkable human. "My people have recently become aware of your civilization's rapid expansion into this sector. We wanted to understand your capabilities and intentions before making formal contact." "And instead you were nearly killed for the attempt." "Yes." Marcus was quiet for several minutes, clearly thinking through the implications of what he had learned. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "Zarathul, what I'm about to tell you could be considered treason by some in my government. But I think you need to understand the situation you found yourself in. The Terran Confederation is not unified in its approach to alien contact. There are factions pushing for peaceful exploration and cultural exchange, and others demanding military dominance of the entire sector. Which faction has more power? Unfortunately, the military faction has been gaining influence, especially after the Centauri mining incident last year. A group of human prospectors were killed by what the reports claimed was an unprovoked alien attack, though many of us suspect there's more to that story than the public was told." Zara's enhanced memory recalled the incident Marcus referenced. A Dragon Empire patrol had indeed engaged human vessels near Centauri, but only after the humans had fired on a diplomatic ship attempting to warn them away from a protected breeding ground for an endangered species. The Empire's official reports had been filed with the Galactic Council, but apparently the humans had not shared the full truth with their own people. "The point is," Marcus continued, "if the wrong people learn about your presence here, they'll either try to capture you for interrogation or eliminate you as a security threat. But there are other options, such as, the university I work for has connections with several peace organizations and diplomatic groups. People who believe that humanity's future lies in cooperation with other intelligent species, not in conquering them. If you're willing to trust us, we might be able to arrange a proper first contact scenario, one that bypasses the military entirely." The offer was more than Zara had dared to hope for. She had expected, at best, to negotiate for safe passage back to Dragon Empire space. The possibility of establishing actual diplomatic relations between their peoples had seemed impossible after the attack on her ship. "There is something you should know," she said slowly. "I am not merely a scout or reconnaissance officer. My true rank is commander of the 7th Fleet, Dragon Empire Navy. If your peace organizations can indeed arrange proper diplomatic contact, I have the authority to negotiate preliminary agreements on behalf of my people." Marcus's eyes widened. "Your military? But you spoke of reconnaissance as if—" "Dragon Empire military philosophy differs significantly from human approaches, it seems. We believe that understanding must precede action. My fleet specializes in first contact protocols and peaceful exploration, not conquest." "A military focused on exploration rather than domination," Marcus mused. "That's actually quite brilliant. No wonder your people have been successful at establishing galactic relationships." Over the next several hours, Zara found herself in the strangest conversation of her long career. Marcus's questions were thoughtful and respectful, focusing not on military capabilities or potential weaknesses, but on cultural exchange and mutual understanding. He wanted to know about Dragon Empire art, philosophy, science, and social structures. In return, he shared insights into human society that helped her understand the complexities of the species far better than any intelligence report had managed. The humans, she learned, were not the monolithic, aggressive culture that Empire analysts had assumed. They were divided into hundreds of different nations, cultures, and belief systems, many of which strongly opposed the militaristic policies of the Confederation government. The fact that a significant portion of humanity desired peaceful coexistence with other species was information that would be extremely valuable to the Empire's diplomatic corps. "There's something else you need to understand about humans," Marcus said as their conversation continued into the ship's morning cycle. "We have a concept called sanctuary. When someone seeks protection from persecution or harm, we have a moral obligation to provide it, regardless of politics or potential consequences. Even for aliens who might be seen as enemies? Especially then. It's one of our oldest and most sacred traditions. The fact that you were attacked without provocation makes you refugees in our eyes, and refugees have rights that supersede military authority." When Sarah arrived for her morning shift, she found Marcus and Zara deep in conversation about the philosophical differences between human and Dragon Empire approaches to space exploration. Her initial shock at discovering their guest's true nature quickly gave way to the same scientific curiosity that Marcus had shown. "This is incredible," she breathed, pulling up a chair to join the discussion. "A species that has achieved interstellar travel while maintaining focus on peaceful contact rather than territorial expansion. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "According to our records, extremely rare," Zara confirmed. "Most species we have encountered follow patterns similar to what you describe in human military factions: expansion through force, resource extraction, dominance over perceived inferiors." "But not your people?" "The Dragon Empire learned long ago that sustainable galactic civilization requires cooperation rather than conquest. We are not pacifists. We will defend ourselves and our allies when necessary, but we have found that trade and cultural exchange provide far greater benefits than military subjugation." Sarah turned to Marcus with excitement. "Do you realize what this means? If we can establish proper contact between our governments, we could be looking at humanity's first genuine alien alliance. Not subjugation, not uneasy neutrality, but actual partnership." "The question is how to make that happen without triggering a military response," Marcus replied. "Zarathul, how long can you and your officers maintain your current forms?" "Several more days, perhaps a week, if we are careful with our energy reserves, but we cannot remain hidden indefinitely. Eventually, our people will send search parties to look for us." "That might actually work in our favor," Sarah suggested. If we can arrange first contact with your rescue ships using proper diplomatic channels, it would be much harder for the military faction to claim aggressive intent. The plan they developed over the next few hours was audacious, but potentially brilliant. Using the university's connections with various peace organizations, they would leak news of the discovery to sympathetic journalists and diplomatic groups simultaneously. By the time the military learned of the Dragon Empire presence, there would already be too much public attention and diplomatic interest for them to take aggressive action without serious political consequences. It's risky, Marcus admitted. If this goes wrong, we could all end up in prison for treason. And if it goes right, Sarah countered, we could be remembered as the people who helped humanity take its first real step toward becoming a mature galactic civilization. Zara studied the two humans who had shown her such unexpected kindness and wisdom. In Dragon Empire culture, the willingness to risk personal safety for the benefit of strangers was considered one of the highest forms of honor. The fact that these humans were prepared to sacrifice their own security to help people they had just met spoke to a nobility of character that Empire philosophers would recognize and respect. There is something else you should consider, she said finally. If we succeed in establishing formal diplomatic contact, the Dragon Empire will remember that it was human civilians, not government officials, who made it possible. That kind of debt creates lasting bonds between civilizations. Are you saying your people would be favorably disposed toward humans in general because of what we're doing? I am saying that the Dragon Empire has very long memories for both kindness and betrayal. The actions you are taking now could influence relations between our peoples for centuries to come. As they began implementing their plan, Zara found herself marveling at the complexity and potential of human civilization. Their willingness to risk everything for the sake of peace, their curiosity about other cultures, their ability to see beyond immediate self-interest to larger possibilities. These were the qualities that had built the great galactic alliances of the past. Perhaps her initial mission had succeeded in ways she had never expected. She had come to study humans and assess their potential as allies or threats. What she had discovered was a species with both the courage and wisdom to become true partners in building a better galaxy. The only question now was whether the rest of humanity was ready to accept that responsibility. The communication went out exactly as planned, spreading through academic networks, peace organizations, and carefully selected media contacts like ripples across a pond. Within hours, the discovery of intelligent alien refugees seeking sanctuary had become the most discussed story across human space. The reaction was everything Marcus and Sarah had hoped for and more. Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the Interspecies Ethics Committee, was the first to respond. Her message arrived just 6 hours after the initial leak. Will arrive within 48 hours with full diplomatic immunity documentation. Ensure subjects remain safe until official contact protocols can be established. Professor James Wright from the Terra Institute of Galactic Studies followed with his own communication. This is exactly the breakthrough we've been hoping for. Have already contacted the Galactic Council's mediation office. They're sending an observer to ensure proper first contact procedures. But it was the message from Admiral Hawkins that revealed the true scope of what they had set in motion. By order of Confederation Military Command, all personnel aboard research vessel Meridian's Hope are to maintain current position and avoid any further communication with alien entities pending arrival of security forces. He's trying to seize control of the situation, Sarah observed grimly as she read the Admiral's message. Classic military response. Isolate, control, interrogate. Marcus was already composing a reply. Too late for that. The diplomatic immunity documentation is already in process, and the media attention means he can't just make us disappear. Zara watched the human political drama unfold with fascination. In Dragon Empire culture, military and civilian authorities operated within clearly defined spheres of influence. The fact that human military commanders could simply issue orders to civilian researchers seemed both inefficient and potentially dangerous. "Your Admiral Hawkins?" she asked. "Does he have legal authority to override civilian research missions?" "In frontier sectors, military commanders have broad emergency powers," Marcus explained. "But those powers aren't absolute, especially when diplomatic immunity is involved. The question is whether he'll respect those limitations or try to force the issue." The answer came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected 3 ships approaching their position, 2 military vessels flying Confederation flags, and 1 clearly civilian craft broadcasting diplomatic codes. "The cavalry arrives," Sarah muttered, though whether she meant the diplomats or the military wasn't clear. "Commander Zarathul," Marcus said formally, "I believe it's time for you to make a choice about how much you want to reveal. The next few hours will determine whether this becomes a successful first contact or a diplomatic disaster." Zara had already made her decision. She signaled to Vextar and Shanai, who had been monitoring the approaching ships through the research vessel's sensors. "We will reveal our true forms and ranks. If humanity is to become an ally of the Dragon Empire, they must see us as we truly are, not as refugees hiding in alien shapes." The transformation was far more dramatic when performed intentionally. Zara allowed her full draconic heritage to emerge, her form expanding to its natural 7-foot height, scales shifting to their proper deep emerald, with silver highlights along the spine and wing membranes. Her officers underwent similar changes, Vextar revealing the golden coloration that marked him as a veteran combat pilot, while Shanai's blue-silver scales indicated her specialization in communications and cultural analysis. When the process was complete, 3 magnificent beings stood in the research ship's main lab, clearly alien, obviously intelligent, and unmistakably dignified. They were no longer refugees hiding in primitive forms, but representatives of an advanced galactic civilization. Marcus and Sarah stared in wonder at the true appearance of their guests. The transformation revealed not just physical differences, but an aura of ancient wisdom and technological sophistication that had been completely hidden by their feline disguises. "Now I understand why your people have been successful at galactic diplomacy," Marcus said quietly. "You're magnificent. And now you see why proper first contact protocols are so important," Zara replied, her natural voice carrying harmonics that filled the room with complex music. "First impressions between species often determine the course of relations for generations." The first ship to dock was the civilian vessel, disgorging a team of diplomats led by Dr. Vasquez and Professor Wright. Their reaction to seeing the Dragon Empire officers in their true forms was everything Zara could have hoped for: professional respect mixed with genuine awe. "Commander Zarathul," Dr. Vasquez said, offering a formal bow that indicated she had studied Dragon Empire customs during her journey. "On behalf of the civilian government of the Terran Confederation, I welcome you to human space and offer our deepest apologies for the unprovoked attack on your vessel." "Dr. Vasquez," Zara replied, returning the bow with the precise angle that indicated mutual respect between equals. "I accept your welcome and your apology in the spirit they are offered. I hope we can use this unfortunate beginning as the foundation for better understanding between our peoples." Professor Wright stepped forward with the eager enthusiasm of a scholar presented with the discovery of a lifetime. "Commander, I've spent 30 years studying galactic civilizations, but the Dragon Empire has been a mystery to us. Your people's reputation for wise governance and peaceful expansion is legendary, but we've had no direct contact." "That lack of contact was deliberate," Vextar interjected, his translator rendering his words in crisp, formal tones. "Human expansion had been aggressive. The Empire chose to observe before making overtures." "And what did your observations reveal?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "A species with tremendous potential," Shanai replied, "but deeply divided about their place in the galaxy. Some humans seek wisdom and cooperation. Others seek only dominance and resource extraction. The diplomatic conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Admiral Hawkins and his security team. The military men burst into the lab with weapons drawn, only to stop short at the sight of the Dragon Empire officers in their full regalia. "Stand down!" Hawkins barked at his troops, though whether he was responding to the obvious dignity of the aliens or the presence of diplomatic personnel wasn't clear. "Dr. Vasquez, what is the meaning of this? These creatures should be in containment pending security assessment." "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez replied calmly, "you are looking at Commander Zarathul of the Dragon Empire's 7th Fleet, along with her senior officers. They are here under diplomatic immunity and as official guests of the Terran Confederation." Diplomatic immunity? Hawkins's face reddened. These aliens were found as refugees on a failed colony world. They could be spies, saboteurs, or worse. Zara stepped forward, her natural height allowing her to look down at the Admiral with calm authority. "Admiral Hawkins, I presume? I am indeed commander of the 7th Fleet, Dragon Empire Navy. My ships were conducting peaceful reconnaissance when they were attacked without warning by vessels under your command. My crew was scattered, my flagship destroyed, and I was forced to seek shelter on that world using emergency survival protocols. You admit to conducting military reconnaissance in Confederation space? I admit to conducting first contact protocols in uncontrolled space, as specified by Galactic Council regulations for initial contact between previously unknown civilizations, the same regulations your own government signed when joining the Council 3 years ago." The Admiral's bluster deflated slightly as he realized the legal implications of what had been said. Attacking ships conducting lawful first contact missions was considered an act of aggression under galactic law. Professor Wright seized the moment. "Admiral, Commander Zarathul's presence here represents an unprecedented opportunity for humanity. The Dragon Empire is one of the most respected civilizations in the galaxy. Their endorsement could open doors for us that might otherwise remain closed for centuries. And their enmity could close doors permanently," Dr. Vasquez added pointedly. "I hope you're prepared to explain to the Confederation Council why you attacked a diplomatic mission." Hawkins looked around the room, clearly realizing that his position was far weaker than he had assumed. The presence of diplomatic personnel, the media attention, and the revelation of the alien's true status had outmaneuvered him completely. "What do you want?" he asked finally, addressing Zara directly. "What I wanted originally," she replied. "Peaceful contact between our civilizations, mutual understanding, and the possibility of beneficial cooperation. Your attack on my ships has complicated that goal, but not made it impossible. And if we were to make amends for that unfortunate incident?" Zara exchanged glances with her officers before answering. "The Dragon Empire is prepared to consider this first contact as beginning now, rather than with the attack on our vessels. We are willing to attribute that incident to miscommunication and overzealous frontier defense, rather than deliberate aggression." The relief on the Admiral's face was visible. A formal complaint to the Galactic Council about unprovoked attacks on diplomatic missions could have resulted in severe sanctions against human space travel and trade. What would such reconsideration require? Immediate cessation of aggressive policies toward non-human vessels in this sector. Establishment of proper first contact protocols for future encounters. And formal diplomatic recognition of this initial meeting as the beginning of peaceful relations between our peoples. Dr. Vasquez stepped in before the Admiral could respond. "Commander Zarathul, I believe I can speak for the civilian government when I say that all of those conditions are not only acceptable but actively desired. Professor Wright, would the Terra Institute be willing to serve as the official liaison for ongoing diplomatic contact?" "It would be an honor," Wright replied immediately. Hawkins looked like he wanted to object, but the weight of political reality was clearly settling on him. The diplomatic victory was complete. The military faction had been outmaneuvered by careful preparation and the willingness of individuals to risk everything for peace. "Very well," the admiral said grudgingly. "I'll recommend that Confederation Command accept these terms." 3 days later, as Zara stood on the observation deck of the newly arrived Dragon Empire diplomatic vessel that had come to collect her, she reflected on the remarkable turn of events. What had begun as a routine reconnaissance mission had become the foundation for what promised to be a long and beneficial alliance between their peoples. Marcus and Sarah had been invited aboard as honored guests and unofficial ambassadors, their role in making the contact possible, ensuring them places in both species' history books. The research data they had gathered would advance understanding of interspecies cooperation by decades. "Commander," Vextar approached with a data pad containing the preliminary diplomatic agreements. "The terms are generous. Mutual defense pacts, shared scientific research, cultural exchange programs, and preferential trade status. The Empire Council is extremely pleased." "As they should be," Zara replied. "Humanity has shown they possess the three qualities most valued by the Empire: courage to risk everything for their principles, wisdom to choose cooperation over conquest, and the honor to protect those who seek sanctuary. Do you think they'll live up to the potential we've seen in Marcus and Sarah?" Zara watched through the viewport as the human diplomatic ship prepared to return to Earth with news of the agreement. Every species faces the choice between wisdom and power, between cooperation and dominance. Humans are facing that choice now. But I believe individuals like Marcus Chen and Sarah Williams represent humanity's true nature. Given time and proper guidance, I believe they will choose wisely. The Dragon Empire ship engaged its quantum drives, beginning the journey back to Empire space with news that would reshape galactic politics. Behind them, human space buzzed with excitement about their new allies and the possibilities that lay ahead. In the end, what had begun with a man assuming 3 small creatures were simple feral cats had become the first chapter in humanity's rise as a respected member of the galactic community. Sometimes, the most important moments in history began with the smallest acts of kindness and the courage to trust strangers with the truth.